Good day. We are here to inform you about the Australians' way of communication and how it is compared to the Filipinos' way of communication and some cultural differences between the said countries. But first, let me introduce to you the country of natural wonders, the country of Australia. Australia is a country in a continent surrounded by Indian and Pacific Oceans. It was originally called New Holland and its capital is Canberra, wherein nicknamed as the Bash Capital. Australians uses the Australian English, in which it is a relatively new dialect of English. It can be considered as a new dialect that developed as a result of contact between people who spoke differently, mutually intelligible varieties of English. Although we cannot know exactly what early Australian English sounded like, we can make some educated guesses based on the recordings of the 19th century speech. These recordings are the elocution movement of the late 19th century. The British aimed to standardize English and decided that Standard Southern English was the correct way of English that should be spoken. This led to three main varieties of Australian English accents known to be Broad Australian, General Australian, and Cultivated Australian. The following are the recordings of elocution movement.
The Olympic torch shines as a symbol of hope, which has pushed aside the barriers of race.
The Olympic torch shines as a symbol of hope, which has pushed aside the barriers of race.
The Olympic torch shines as a symbol of hope, which has pushed aside the barriers of race.
From the recordings we heard, let us classify the meaning of those three movements. Cultivated Australian accent, the T is softened and the sounds more like a D, while in General and Broad Australian accent, the T is softened or completely ignored. With these informations, let's explore, think deeply and broadly how Australians communicate with each other and how they differ in the Philippines.
Let's proceed to the Australians' verbal communication. Actually, they have three communication styles. The first one is direct, in which they make their intentions obvious and uses a tone of voice that is forthright. It also means that people say what they mean, wherein there is no need to read between the lines. Simply put, they do not sugarcoat words and go straight to the point when they speak or communicate. The next one is low context. In this communication style, messages should be spelled out, no background knowledge is assumed, and words are the primary means of communication. Low context communication allows for open participation, whereby backgrounds such as culture and norms aren't required to interact. And Australians are known to be very open and inclusive in communicating or when communicating. Lastly is informal, in which status or hierarchy is not important or considered when speaking in this communication style. And Australians are known to call someone in their first name and greet them in a very relaxed and informal way, but not disrespectful. Most Australians have the unique ability to swap quite easily from a strong Aussie accent to speech that sounds more refined. For example, the words banana, zebra, and vitamin, they pronounce it as banana or nana in short. Then zebra, they pronounce it or they say it as zebra, and vitamin as vitamin, which is very similar to the American style of pronouncing it. Australians are quite self-deprecating in conversation in an effort to come across as humble, honest, and relaxed. Australians also often use slang words, and they frequently shorten any words that seem overly complicated by using diminutives. For example, the word afternoon, they say it as arvo. Another example is definitely, they say it as defo. And lastly, the word breakfast, they say it as brekkie in short. So that's all for the Australians' verbal communication.
Next is the body language or non-verbal communication of Australians. The first is wink. Winking at women is considered rude in Australia. Number 2 is V sign and thumbs up. Making a V sign is a vulgar gesture and thumbs up is considered obscene or simply said as offensive. Then the last one is eye contact. It is very important to have eye contact to the person you're speaking with, as not looking into their eyes is considered disrespectful and seems like you aren't telling the truth.
Next, let us compare the cultural differences of the Australian and Filipinos in terms of communication. Australians are open and have upfront conversation but find it hard to deal with the criticism, while Filipino preferred receiving straightforward and detailed feedback wherein more constructive feedback is the better. Australians call their close friends by first names and strangers as meet, with the use of friendly tone manner, while Filipinos call their close friend as bro, beshi. And when gaining the attention of strangers, Filipino used to say ate, kuya in a polite manner. Also, Australians tend to remain professional and friendship tend to develop slowly over time, while Filipinos' friendship develop very quickly and team members enjoy frequent social touch-up outside. Australians are friendly, honest, and open-minded people. For example, when they're walking on the street and you suddenly smile to the strangers, they tend to smile back and will greet you, "Hi." However, Filipino are shy to smile back to the people they don't know unless you're close enough to greet and talk to each other.
In Australia, citizens refer to someone they know or someone they just met with their first name. Unlike in the Philippines, we use ate or kuya to refer to someone we know or we just met, especially when they're older than us. We also refer to someone that's a bit older than us with manang or manong to show respect. Filipinos also use the common gestures, which is called mano, meaning blessed in English. This is a way of showing respect to the elders and a way of accepting a blessing from them. Furthermore, Australians often greet someone they're close to with a kiss on the cheek or a hug. On the other hand, Filipinos greet each other with a pat on the back and a kiss on the cheek. This is more common among women whenever they meet their close friends or family. In addition, swearing is more common in Australia than in many other cultures.
While in the Philippines communication style, Filipino will try to express their opinions diplomatically and with humility. Speech is often ambiguous and Filipino may speak in the passive voice rather than the active to avoid being perceived as speaking harshly. At the end of the phrases, sentences, or questions, they will say po to show respect for hierarchy. Filipino walk hand in hand or hold hands with other as a sign of affection, friendship, or if they are shy and would like someone to accompany them. The meaning of laughter depends on the situation. It can indicate happiness or pleasure or tension. However, Filipino and Australian have this kind of similarities. The humor, Australians often use this in communication, so expect some light-hearted joking is most conversation. Like in the Philippines with fun lives wherein they joke about situational circumstances when often used to lighten moods of approach difficult topics is an indirect way. Australian and Filipino sarcasm can be dry or very dry, witty and direct. It is sometimes difficult to some foreigners to detect when people are kidding as Australian. Do not always break from a joke to clarify, but Filipino clarify if it is joke or not.
Thanks, Hips, for listening and exploring with us in Australia's communication culture. I hope you gain some knowledge and apply it if you're planning to bring yourself there in Australia someday. Cheers for watching!